Well, folks, welcome to this little installment of Park Notes. I have with me a real live professor of philosophy, Dr. Thomas Ward, and we're going to be talking a little bit about his use of notebooks. This is kind of like a little defense of myself. I probably have severe ADHD, and that's why I collect them so much, but I'm not the only one who uses notebooks in philosophy. So I'm glad to have Dr. Tom Ward with me. We just recorded a Parker's Pensées episode on Boethius. Those of you who know about my project, my novel, my science fiction novel, know that I love this book, and I'm trying to do that in science fiction as well. So he helped me figure that out through his brand new book, After Stoicism. So there's a link to this in the description, link to our conversation in the description. Go check that out. But Dr. Ward, thanks so much for coming on and talking about notebooks with me.
Happy to be here, Parker.
Yeah, man. So I actually don't know how you use them, but I saw you had a whole nice stack there. So let me ask, like, what role do notebooks play in your own study of philosophy?
Study of philosophy. Yeah, they, they play a few different roles. I got two that are philosophy related. So
Nice.
I when I read philosophy, I almost always take notes in a notebook by hand.
Mm,
And then later on, when I need to write a philosophy paper, if I'm writing a book, I'll usually start drafting by typing, but often I'll even take those notes and I'll start drafting within the notebook too and keep going. But handwritten notes are just I learned it when I was a kid and I've never gotten away from it. And when I try to write notes on the regular, like a Word, Microsoft Word, I just feel like I don't have as much freedom. Like
mm,
it actually seems to restrict my thinking because when I'm taking notes, I'm doing whatever formatting I want. And sometimes it's bullet points, sometimes it's more of like a cloud kind of thing. Um, but I'm kind of all over the place with the notebook in a way that I can't be. I guess some people use the pen on a tablet,
mhm.
but the tactile feedback, the no scrape on the paper, I just
Yeah,
can't. Haven't been able to get used to that either. So yeah, it's paper for me.
that's
Um,
awesome. They've
yeah.
tried. There's like the Kindle Paperwhite, and they've tried to make that kind of tactile. For me, also, it's the codex format of opening the page. When I flip, I can remember what part of the page is right side or left side, and it helps when I look back for my notes. I know it's on the right side. I don't know exactly what page it's on, but I can do that. And I've looked up some psychological literature on this, and there's this one study from Japan. So of course, if it agrees with me, I'm going to pump it out like it's true. But it says that that spatial component of using pen and paper actually helps you remember things more.
Yeah, like the old technique of a memory palace, where
Yeah.
you just in mind, you try to locate, things to remember in different places. Um, I think there's a similar principle there, where when I'm writing, going crazy in a notebook, I remember kind of like you. I remember not just where it was on the page, right side, left side, but I also almost like remember what the writing was like.
Yeah.
Sometimes down to like, oh yeah, like that was extra messy writing that day,
Mm,
or that was tidier writing, or whatever.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
I think that's super helpful. So one thing I like to emphasize, so I make all sorts of videos about taking notes and stuff like that. When I read, so we're talking about Boethius's Constellation of Philosophy. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I take a lot of marginal notes. Um, I was wondering when you're reading something, are you what kind of notes are you taking? Are you taking marginal notes as well, or do you take really detailed notes in your notebook that helps you find on the page, or what do those notes look like?
personally, I don't do a lot of marginalia. I will underline and check and star and things like that, but typically the content is going into the notebook,
Mm,
and then there's a kind of cross referencing, because if I write a page number in the notebook, and then some notes, and eventually I go back to the book, I see the underlinings and the stars, and so like the eye is directly able to find whatever I need to find.
yeah. That's great. So what you had mentioned about actually writing the papers, so I call that a manuscript commonplace book. I've done some research now on notebook styles and methods, and that was a style when notebooks were coming out in like the Renaissance. Uh, people were collecting quotations, and I call those just a treasury commonplace book. It's for your
Yeah.
friends and family. It's for you to memorize and stuff. But then there was also this other tradition of manuscripts, and authors were writing the quote and then their thoughts on them, and they were creating marginalia in those kind of notes and manuscripting out their papers, putting the quotes together in the way they want them to be published. And those are all crazy, messy.
Yeah.
You can only, if you're the author, you can read them, but no one else really. Um,
Yeah.
when you're taking those notes, are you writing quotations down, or is that too slow? Do you have any kind of set notation of a star means this or something like that?
Not anything that formulaic. I will uh one technique is to copy out a passage,
Mhm.
um, something that seems especially important or pithy, like the act of copying it out, uh, forces you to think about it,
Totally.
and sometimes it's like just a helpful way to just kind of get the juices going, and then I'll comment on it, or I'll say what I why it ended up in the book. Um, I also often work in Latin, and
Mm.
so if I if I need to get like a precise translation, not just the gist, it's like if I'm sight reading, I can just get the gist. But if I really need to dig down, I'll write out a couple sentences of Latin, and
Mm.
I'll do it double spaced, and then I'll go back in and I'll start doing my more refined translation in the spaces.
Mm.
That's pretty common. Sometimes if I'm just in like reference collecting mode, it'll just be a bullet of like page numbers,
Mm.
organized by topic,
Yeah.
and it usually serves me well. I mean, I had this weird experience where I was researching a paper last summer, and I did what felt like most of the research, but then I had to set that aside, kind of unexpectedly, and I was coming up against the due date for that paper half a year later. And I remembered, oh yeah, I actually did a lot of the work on this. And so I went back and there it all was. And I I didn't draft the paper, but I had like all of the content, all of the connections, all of the main text that I needed to make, all the points that I wanted to make. They were all there in like 10 pages of my notebook. So it was really just looking at my notebook and drafting it up on the computer. And so this like 8,000 word research article came together in less than a week because of the record keeping that I had done when I actually did my deep dive 6 months ago.
Yes, dude, that's part of the reason I love notebooks so much. People always ask, like, why don't you do these digital methods? And part of it is, what if the cloud goes down or they change the fees or whatever? But the other part is the spatial awareness in the notebook and the fact that when I'm hyper focused, because again, I think I have some pretty severe ADHD and I can just go super hard and then I drop it forever. It's in the notebook. That's how I survived seminary. That's how I survived my master's in philosophy. I had all these notes in here and I was able to pull back from those and write papers when I needed to, which was super helpful. When you're
Yeah.
when it comes to, so you just wrote this book after Stoicism. It's about the constellation of philosophy. The subtitle is "The Last Words of the Last Roman Philosopher." It's awesome. Were you using notebooks for this? Like, did you do the same kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I just the other day, so the same notebook that I was just talking about where I had done the research, a few months ago, I was going back through and I found, let's see if I can, anyway, can't find it right now, but I was going back through and I found basically like half of chapter one. That because in that case I actually had started drafting in the notebook itself. And I was amazed when I found it. It's like, oh, yeah, that's actually how the book turned out. Like
Mm.
those words stayed. So yeah, I did the same thing. And for this book I had to do a lot of uh reading a bunch of the Boethius commentaries and stuff that I hadn't read before. And so I didn't want to get really bogged down in like just speaking to the scholarly literature. I wanted to take points that I thought were really good, make sure I credit them in the book itself, but I didn't want it to be like a conversation of a bunch of Boethius geeks, And so it was
Yeah.
just like I would take the little nuggets out of the commentary and have them in my notebook so that I wasn't tempted later on to like get too bogged down in the scholar's words,
Mhm.
like just I just wanted to take the little nugget. So
Yeah.
it was helpful to record that in a notebook too.
That's awesome. I love that. So folks, or you guys are seeing that there are really practical ways to use notebooks in your own scholarship. It doesn't have to be as insane as mine, but you can use it in a really fun way. I do have to ask, since you're a professor of philosophy, about the nature of the notebook and the mind. So, Chalmers and Clark talk about this extended mind thesis that, perhaps your mind does extend out into reality. And so people talk about this. It's a prominent theme in one of the Harry Potter stories about the Horcrux, and you're kind of like, you don't have to kill anyone to put your thoughts into a
Yeah.
notebook here, but do you think your mind extends into the notebook? Because you had said you almost forgot some of the stuff, but you looked back in your notebook and there were your thoughts. They're just markers that help you remind. But what do you think about the nature of your mind extending into a notebook or not?
I think there's a much simpler theory about what's going on here than extended mind.
Mhm.
We have this old idea that people seem to have forgotten about. The old idea is tool.
Mm.
Like a tool is not your mind. A tool
Yeah.
is something that helps you do things
Mhm.
um, that would be harder to do without that tool. And so, yeah, so my to do list is something that I use a paper notebook for. It's not. This is not my mind.
Mhm.
This is a tool that I use to help me remember what I have to do. So yeah, I mean, I can't get a lot of sympathy for the extended mind stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, I believe a bunch of things that that other philosophers think is crazy. So I don't hold it against them. I just think that there's a simpler theory out
Yeah.
there to explain the phenomenon.
That's awesome. Well, that's huge. Folks, if you guys want to hear more from Dr. Ward here, definitely check out our episode. I think we've done 3 or 4, so maybe I'll put all the links in the description. But definitely listen to this one we just recorded on After Stoicism, Last Words of the Last Roman Philosopher. I know you guys are Stoic geeks out there, and this talks a lot about Stoicism, but also Boethius, who had appropriated Stoicism and parts of it, but I think improved on it to give himself some consolation before his untimely demise. So, spoilers for the Consolation of Philosophy, but it's been out for thousands of years or whatever. So, you should have read it by now. Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for now. Dr. Ward, where can people find you if they wanted to look into more of your stuff?
I got a website. That's my name, thomasmward.com. You want to see what else I've written out there. Could I say one more thing about
Please.
how I use notebooks?
Yeah,
Because
of course.
this is one that I'm really proud of. So this is my wallet, and what I use is it's like a passport wallet,
Yep.
but I use it every day, and I keep a field notes in the passport section.
It's a memo
And
book.
so yeah, it's like a
Memo.
regular field notes memo book, and then this mini pen from Pilot.
Nice.
It's like $5 on Amazon, and I keep both of them in here so that wherever I am, whenever, if I have a thought that I want to get down, but this notebook is not special. So like maybe it's thoughts, but it might just be like a to do list.
Yep.
If I'm like talking to someone, there's something that comes up and I want to remember it, I'll just jot it down real quick, and then it's there.
Yeah.
So then the flow of conversation goes. I don't have to work it trying to make sure it gets stuck in my mind, but it's there when I need it.
So I call it a catch-all notebook.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and then from there, I disperse them into the other notebooks when I have time. So, like, if you have a
Yeah.
really good idea in there for the book, are you taking it out of there and then putting it into your other notebook? Or
Yeah, sometimes it'll go into another notebook if I need to organize stuff. Sometimes it could just go directly into the Word document.
nice, okay, yeah, that's awesome, man. I love it. I love to see it. Making me feel less crazy, which is very welcome on this channel. Uh, you guys will also notice that he's got a better mustache than me. Yeah, it's true. You can leave a
I don't think
comment
it's
about
true
it.
anymore. I don't think it's true anymore.
Great. All right, guys. Well, yeah, this has been a nice little installment. If you guys want to see more of these type of little talks where I talk with a scholar about their use of notebooks, then leave me a comment and let me know. If you made it this far into the video, leave me a little sinking emoji. That's going to do it for now. I'll catch you guys next time.